Commander Ulkesh of the Komathian Empire had conquered 18 worlds before his 30th rotation. His unit, the Obsidian Talons, held a record that would make lesser species weep. 212 successful operations across hostile territory. 0 casualties, 0 failures. They were ghosts in armor, death wrapped in silence, the kind of soldiers that made planetary governors surrender at the mere mention of their name. So naturally, when High Command assigned them to infiltrate a remote human research outpost on the forest moon of Terra Nova 6, Ulkesh expected this to be another routine extraction, another trophy for the mantelpiece, another footnote in the glorious history of Komathian military supremacy. Oh, how beautifully, spectacularly wrong he was. Intelligence confirms the presence of dormant biological weapons. His second-in-command, Horpak, whispered through the comm link as their insertion craft descended through the moon's atmosphere. Human designation: Project Olympus Cadets. Current status: inactive, contained in cryogenic suspension. Ulkesh checked his weapons charge for the 5th time. Humans were unpredictable. Violent, yes. Clever, certainly. But also prone to creating things that even they couldn't control. The galaxy had heard stories, whispered rumors in dark corners of space stations about human experiments gone wrong, biological terrors, genetic abominations, weapons that turned on their creators. And here the Komathian Empire had a chance to capture 6 of them before they woke up. Approach vector locked, the pilot announced. Landing in 30 seconds, no perimeter alerts, no active defenses detected. That should have been the first warning sign, but Ulkesh, drunk on 2 decades of unbroken victory, interpreted it as confirmation of their superiority. Of course the humans hadn't detected them. Of course their security was laughable. They were humans, after all, brilliant in chaotic bursts, but lacking the discipline and refinement of proper military doctrine. The craft touched down in a clearing 3 kilometers from the research facility. The Obsidian Talons deployed in perfect formation. 24 warriors moving through the forest, like shadows given form. Their armor adapted to the environment, shifting colors to match the purple-tinged foliage and gray-brown bark of Terra Nova 6's native trees. To any observer, biological or electronic, they simply didn't exist. Ulkesh moved at the formation's center, scanning the terrain with practiced efficiency. The moon was beautiful. He'd give the humans that much. Twin rivers cut through the valley below, feeding into a lake that reflected the gas giant hanging in the sky above. The research facility sat on a hill overlooking the water, a cluster of white buildings arranged in a star pattern, all clean lines and transparent walls. Architecture analysis suggests minimal defensive capability, Horpak reported. Structure designed for observation and research, not combat. Maintain stealth protocol, Ulkesh ordered. Remember, we're extracting bioweapons, not engaging human military. If we do this correctly, they won't even know we were here until we're 3 systems away. They reached the facility's outer perimeter within an hour. The security was, frankly, insulting. A basic electronic fence that their tech specialist bypassed in under 2 minutes. Motion sensors positioned so obviously that even a cadet could avoid them. Cameras on fixed rotations with gaps large enough to drive a transport through. "This is too easy," muttered Kuramoth, the unit's infiltration expert. "Humans don't do easy. This feels wrong." "It feels like arrogance," Ulkesh corrected. "They believe their weapons are so terrible, so powerful, that conventional security is unnecessary. Why guard something that guards itself?" Kuramoth didn't look convinced, but she followed orders. That was what the Obsidian Talons did. They followed orders. They completed missions. They returned home victorious. Every single time. They entered through a maintenance access on the facility's north side. The interior was strange, bright, colorful. The walls displayed constantly shifting images, star systems, mathematical equations, historical scenes from various species cultures. One corridor had been painted to look like an underwater scene, complete with holographic fish swimming past. "What kind of weapons facility looks like this?" Horpak whispered, clearly unsettled. "Psychological conditioning," Ulkesh replied with more confidence than he felt. "They're raising these weapons from youth, programming them. The bright colors, the educational displays, it's all part of making them loyal, controllable." It made sense. It had to make sense. Because the alternative, that they'd misunderstood something fundamental about this mission, was unthinkable. They passed what appeared to be a classroom. Desks sized for beings half Ulkesh's height. A board covered in chemical formulas. Models of various planets hanging from the ceiling. Books, actual physical books, stacked on shelves along the walls. Biological weapons that— "Read," Kermoth said slowly. "Humans are sentimental," Ulkesh shot back. "They probably teach their weapons literature before teaching them to kill. It's inefficient, but very them." They found the containment area on the facility's lower level. A large room with climate control systems humming quietly in the background. And there, arranged in a circle like some kind of ritual formation, were 6 pods. Each one was transparent, allowing full view of the occupants within. Children. Or what looked like children, anyway. Small humans, their faces peaceful in artificial sleep. They wore matching jumpsuits in different colors: blue, green, red, yellow, orange, purple. Their personnel files were conveniently displayed on screens beside each pod. Ulkesh approached the first pod, cautiously. The nameplate read, "Tobias, age 12, specialist in strategic analysis and pattern recognition." Strategic analysis. So young, and already trained in military planning. The boy's file listed achievements that seemed impossible. 3 published papers on game theory, winner of multiple planetary-level competitions in logic and reasoning, fluent in 6 languages, including 2 alien dialects. "This one is clearly their tactical commander," Ulkesh murmured, studying Tobias's sleeping face. The boy looked normal, almost innocent if you didn't know better. Probably engineered from birth to process battlefield data faster than our combat computers. The next pod contained a girl named Hannah, age 11. Her file made Ulkesh's secondary heart skip a beat. Engineering prodigy, capable of constructing functional devices from minimal resources. Winner, Interplanetary Youth Innovation Prize. So she was their weapons specialist, the one who could turn anything into a tool of destruction. Delightful. Dex, age 10. Physics specialist, published research on quantum mechanics applications, noted for exceptional energy and creative problem-solving. A walking physics weapon. Wonderful. Priya, age 11. Biological sciences expert, 3 years advanced study in xenobiology and genetics. Volunteer, interspecies medical exchange program. Biowarfare specialist, of course. Micah, age 9. Computer systems prodigy, youngest ever recipient of the Turing Computational Award, expert in artificial intelligence and network architecture. Cyber warfare operative, and the youngest of them, probably the most dangerous, knowing humans. Lexi, age 12. Chemistry specialist, advanced molecular synthesis and materials science. Safety officer, youth research initiative. chemical weapons expert with a sense of irony, apparently, given the safety officer title. By the eternal void, Horpak breathed, reading over the files. These humans are insane. These are children, actual children, and they've turned them into weapons, Ulkesh finished grimly. Into the most dangerous weapons in the galaxy. Think about it. They've taken human creativity, human unpredictability, human adaptability, and focused it through military training from birth. Each one is a specialist in a different form of warfare. Together, they probably operate as a single, unstoppable tactical unit. He stared at the sleeping children. No, the sleeping weapons, and felt something he hadn't experienced in years. Fear? No, respect. Grudging, uncomfortable respect for humanity's absolute ruthlessness. They'd looked at their own offspring and decided to make them into instruments of conquest. Set up a perimeter, he ordered. Full surveillance on all entry points. Our extraction ship won't arrive for another 6 hours. Until then, we watch them. We document everything. And we do not, under any circumstances, wake them up. The Obsidian. Talons moved into position with their usual efficiency. Motion sensors at every door. Cameras covering every angle. 2 warriors assigned to each pod, ready to deploy sedatives if the occupants showed any signs of waking. Ulkesh settled into a monitoring station, pulling up the facility's files. Surely there would be information about how to safely transport the weapons. Protocols, safety procedures, something. What he found instead were lesson plans, schedules for classes, meal menus, an upcoming field trip to a nearby geological formation, parent contact information, including comm frequencies and listed occupations, teacher, engineer, doctor, musician, restaurant owner, pilot. Their cover identities are very thorough, he muttered. Sir, Kermoth called from across the room, I found their training logs. Ulkesh hurried over. Finally, some useful intelligence. He scanned the data quickly, translating the human military jargon in his head. Team-building exercises in low-gravity environments, he read. Advanced problem-solving scenarios. Competitive challenges in resource management. Wilderness survival training. Hand-to-hand combat. Wait, no. That says Introduction to Martial Arts as Cultural Expression. He scrolled further. Robotics construction workshops. Chemical reaction demonstrations. Biological sample collection and analysis. Astrophysics observation sessions. Creative writing seminars. Music appreciation. Ulkesh stopped. Read that last part again. Music appreciation? This must be code, Horpak suggested. Music appreciation is probably psychological warfare training? Using sound as a weapon? Obviously, Ulkesh agreed, though doubt was beginning to creep into his mind like poison into a water supply. His communicator chimed, the extraction ship, checking in. Obsidian Talon 1, this is Retrieval Vessel Kormathan. We're 3 hours out. Status on the cargo? Secure and dormant, Ulkesh reported. 6 units, as expected. We're maintaining surveillance until pickup. Understood. Command is very pleased with this operation. These human bioweapons will give the Empire a significant strategic advantage. High Command sends their congratulations on another flawless mission. Another flawless mission. Ulkesh looked at the sleeping children. At Tobias with his slightly messy hair. At Hannah with her hand curled under her cheek. At Dex, whose foot was sticking out from under his blanket. At Priya, who was smiling in her sleep. At Micah clutching a small stuffed creature. At Lexi, who had somehow gotten her jumpsuit twisted around during rest. They looked so small, so fragile. so utterly, completely harmless. Which meant, Ulkesh reminded himself, that they were probably the most dangerous beings he'd ever encountered. Humans were experts at deception. This innocence was just another weapon in their arsenal. He returned to his post and settled in to wait. What Ulkesh didn't know, what he couldn't possibly know, was that in approximately 90 minutes, the facility's automated systems would trigger a scheduled wake-up sequence, a routine maintenance protocol that ran every month, designed to check the pod's occupants for health and vital signs before returning them to rest. The Obsidian Talons, for all their skill and experience, hadn't thought to check the automated systems. And that oversight was about to turn their flawless mission into the most embarrassing incident in Comathian military history. 89 minutes into their surveillance, Horpak noticed the first anomaly. "Sir, the pods are initiating some kind of sequence," he reported, studying his scanner with growing concern. "Internal temperature rising, nutrient solution draining, life support transitioning from dormant to active mode." Ulkesh was on his feet instantly. "Shut it down. Override the system." "Trying, sir, but the protocols are—" Horpak's claws danced across the control panel. "They're isolated, hardwired into a countdown sequence that started 2 hours before we arrived. This isn't random. This is scheduled." "Scheduled?" Ulkesh felt his blood run cold. "You're telling me these weapons wake up on a regular basis?" "Apparently every 30 days, according to the logs. For medical monitoring and—" Horpak paused, translating the human text. "And to prevent muscle atrophy during extended rest periods." That didn't make any sense. Biological weapons didn't need to worry about muscle atrophy, unless the humans had designed them to maintain peak physical condition at all times, ready for deployment at a moment's notice. Yes, that had to be it. "All units, combat-ready positions," Ulkesh ordered, his voice steady despite the adrenaline flooding his system. "Prepare sedative protocols. The moment they emerge, we put them back under. We are not engaging 6 trained human weapons in close quarters." "Understood?" 24. Obsidian Talons moved into formation, weapons raised, sedative darts loaded. They'd faced down mechanized assault units, biological horrors from the outer reaches, and rogue AI combat platforms. They could handle 6 small humans, probably. The first pod hissed open. Tobias stirred, his eyes fluttering. A small sound escaped his throat, something between a yawn and a groan. He sat up slowly, rubbing his face with both hands. 5 more minutes, he mumbled in standard human, his voice thick with sleep. Ulkesh aimed his sedative gun, finger on the trigger. The boy looked disoriented, vulnerable. It was clearly a trap. Tobias blinked several times, then noticed his pod was open. "Oh, right. Monthly check." He stretched his arms above his head, joints popping. "What time is it?" The other pods were opening now. Hannah emerged next, her dark hair sticking up at odd angles. She looked around, confused. "Did I miss breakfast? I feel like I missed breakfast." "It's the check-in day," Dex announced, practically bouncing out of his pod, despite having been asleep 30 seconds ago. Oh man, do you think they'll let us go outside this time? I want to see the meteor shower they mentioned. Did you know that Terra Nova 6's orbital position means we get like 3 times the normal meteor activity because of the debris field from— "Dex, please," Priya said gently, climbing out of her pod with considerably more grace. "It's too early for astrophysics lectures." "It's never too early for astrophysics," Dex countered. Micah sat up, looking around with the careful assessment of someone much older than 9. "Where is everyone? Dr. Hollins is usually here for wake-up." Lexi was the last to emerge, immediately frowning at the empty room. Okay, this is weird. Something's not right. Ulkesh watched this exchange with growing confusion. These weapons were talking to each other? Making jokes? Complaining about missed meals and absent supervisors? Where was the immediate combat readiness? Where was the cold tactical assessment of their situation? Maybe they're testing us, Tobias suggested, now fully awake and looking around with sharp, intelligent eyes. Like a surprise scenario? Remember last month when they did that fire drill at 0300 hours? That was terrible, Hannah agreed. I was in the middle of the best dream about designing a fusion reactor that ran on… Guys, Lexi interrupted, walking to a console and pulling up the facility's security feed. We've got a bigger problem. The children, the weapons, Ulkesh corrected himself, gathered around the screen. And that's when they saw it. 24 armored figures positioned throughout the containment area. Weapons drawn, all focused on them. There was a moment of absolute silence. Then Dex started laughing. Oh, this is brilliant. They set up a whole tactical scenario. Look at the detail on that armor. Is that actual Comathian design or a really good replica? Has to be replica, Micah said, leaning closer to the screen. Real Comathian stealth armor costs like 1,000,000 credits per suit. No way the program budget covers that. Ulkesh's translator was working perfectly. He understood every word, and he understood that these human weapons thought this was some kind of training exercise. They thought he and his elite unit were props, actors, part of a simulation. Sir, should we identify ourselves? Horpak whispered. No, Ulkesh replied quickly. Let them think this is training. It might keep them calm. Less likely to use lethal force if they believe it's a game. On the screen, Tobias had taken charge. Okay, so standard scenario rules probably apply. We need to figure out the objective, assess our resources, and develop a strategy. I call engineering lead, Hannah said immediately. I want physics applications, Dex added. I'll handle biological assessment and medical backup, Priya offered. Computer systems are mine, Micah announced, which leaves me with chemistry and… Tobias, with overall tactics, Lexi finished. Same as always. They moved with a coordination that would have impressed Ulkesh if he wasn't so busy trying to understand what was happening. These weren't trained soldiers moving into combat positions. These were children dividing up tasks like they were planning a school project. Tobias pulled up a facility map on the console. Okay, we're in the containment area. 24 hostiles, all armed but not firing. Which means either they want us alive, or this is a capture and extract scenario. Ooh, I love those, Dex said. Remember the one on Titan Station where we had to… Dex, focus, Tobias said, but he was smiling. Resources. What have we got? Hannah was already scanning the room. 6 cryopods with functional power supplies, medical equipment, air filtration systems, emergency supplies in the wall panels. And if we can reach the upper levels, we've got the entire teaching lab with all our project materials. I'm checking the network, Micah said, his fingers flying across a portable terminal he'd pulled from somewhere. They haven't locked us out of the facility systems. Either they're really confident or really sloppy. Ulkesh felt a chill run down his spine. The human weapon was already accessing the facility's network. Within minutes, the boy could probably override every system in the building. Should we stop him? Horpak asked. Let's see what he does first, Ulkesh replied, morbidly curious about what came next. Okay, I've got an idea, Tobias announced. If this is a capture scenario, they're probably waiting for extraction, which means we've got a time limit. We need to stay free until the scenario ends or until we neutralize all the hostiles. Define neutralize, Priya said carefully. Non-lethal, obviously. It's training. Tobias grinned. Which means we can get creative. That grin should have come with a warning label. That grin should have triggered every combat instinct Ulkesh had developed over 3 decades of warfare. Instead, he simply watched as these 6 human children, these supposed weapons, started planning their counterattack with the enthusiasm of people about to play the best game of their lives. First, we need intel, Tobias continued. Micah, can you access the PA system? Can I access the PA system? Micah repeated with mock offense. Please, give me 30 seconds. 20 seconds later, Tobias's voice echoed through every speaker in the facility. Hello. Hi. This is Tobias from Pod 1. We're awake now, and we noticed you're all in position for what we assume is an extraction scenario. Cool setup, by the way. The armor looks really authentic. Anyway, we were wondering if there's supposed to be a briefing or if we just start. Also, is anyone else hungry? Because we missed breakfast, and I think there's cookies in the commissary if someone wants to grab them before we begin. In his observation post, Ulkesh stared at the speaker, above his head. The human weapon had just asked for cookies. Mid-combat scenario. Asked for cookies. Sir, how do we respond to that? Horpak asked, sounding as bewildered as Ulkesh felt. We don't, Ulkesh said firmly. We maintain position. We wait for extraction. We do not engage with... He was interrupted by a soft whirring sound. Every head in the Obsidian Talons unit turned to see 3 maintenance robots rolling into the containment area, their cargo compartments open. Inside were juice boxes, cookies, and what appeared to be sandwiches. Snack delivery, Micah's voice announced cheerfully over the PA. Courtesy of the facility's automated systems, please help yourselves. We figured everyone might be hungry. Ulkesh watched a cookie-laden robot roll directly toward his position. This, he realized with dawning horror, was going to be a very long day. The maintenance robots continued their cheerful journey across the containment area, completely oblivious to the 24 armed warriors who were staring at them like they'd just witnessed a violation of physics itself. It's a distraction, Ulkesh hissed into his comm. Ignore the machines. Maintain. The first robot exploded. Well, not exploded exactly. But Kirmoth, nerves stretched to breaking point, had fired a plasma bolt at the approaching machine. The robot's cargo compartment ruptured, spraying cookies and juice boxes across the floor in a cascade of snack-based devastation. The robot itself sparked, beeped sadly, and rotated in confused circles, leaving a trail of strawberry jam from crushed sandwiches. Contact! Someone shouted, and suddenly 2 more warriors were firing at the remaining robots. Cease fire! Ulkesh roared, but it was too late. The second robot took a hit directly to its power core and actually did explode. A small detonation that filled the air with what smelled like synthetic vanilla and ozone. The third robot, showing more survival instinct than seemed programmed, reversed direction and fled at maximum speed, trailing juice boxes behind it like a snack-dispensing comet. In the containment area's control room, 6 children watched this unfold on the security monitors. They shot the cookie robot, Hannah said, her voice filled with genuine dismay. Who shoots a cookie robot? People who are really committed to the scenario, Tobias replied, though he looked uncertain. That's actually really good prop work. The explosions looked completely real. Because they were real, Lexi said slowly, studying the feed. Guys, I don't think those are props. Look at the scorch marks on the floor. Look at the heat signatures. That was actual plasma discharge. Dex's eyes went wide. Wait, you're saying those are real weapons? Like actual real weapons? In our facility? Which means those aren't actors, Micah added, his fingers already flying across his terminal. Okay, okay, don't panic. Let me check the authorization logs. Maybe this is, like, a super advanced training thing they arranged with actual military personnel? Really committing to realism? He pulled up the facility's access records. His face went pale. There's no authorization, no scheduled drills, no logged visitors. These people broke in. The room went very quiet. So, we're not in a training scenario, Priya said carefully. We're in an actual break-in. By actual aliens, Hannah added. With actual weapons, Lexi finished. Who just murdered our cookie delivery, Dex said. And despite the situation, Tobias had to suppress a completely inappropriate laugh. Okay, new plan, Tobias announced, his voice taking on a different quality, less playful, more focused. This isn't a game, but we've trained for emergency scenarios. We know this facility better than anyone, and we need to stay safe until help arrives. Should we call for help? Priya asked. Micah was already checking. Long-range comms are jammed. They're good, whoever they are. But the facility's emergency beacon should still... He pressed a sequence. There. Silent alarm to the nearest patrol station. Response time is usually 45 minutes to an hour. So we need to avoid armed intruders for an hour, Hannah said. In our own facility, where we know every vent, every access tunnel, every system. A slow smile spread across her face. Oh no, Lexi said. I know that look. It's a good look, Hannah countered. It's my we can totally do this look. Your we can totally do this look usually ends with something on fire, Lexi pointed out. Only that one time, and the fire suppression systems worked perfectly, which proved my point about the design specifications. Tobias held up his hands. Focus. We need to move. This room has only one exit, and they're between us and it. We need another way out. Ventilation system, Micah suggested immediately. Main shaft runs right above us, connects to the entire facility. Vents, Dex said. We're actually going to do the thing where we crawl through vents. This is the worst day ever. 5 minutes later, 6 children were crawling through the facility's air circulation system, while below them, the obsidian talons tried to process what had just happened. They escaped, Horpak reported, studying his scanner in disbelief. The weapons just crawled into the ventilation system. Then we follow them, Ulkesh ordered, pointing to the vent opening. Kirmoth, Dex. He paused. Kirmoth, Vexenal, you're smallest. Pursue through the vents. The 2 warriors looked at the vent opening, then at each other, then back at Ulkesh. Sir, we're wearing full combat armor, Kirmoth said. We don't fit in there. Then take off the armor. Sir, that would leave us vulnerable to... They're children, Ulkesh snapped, his legendary composure finally cracking. 6 small humans crawling through air ducts. What exactly are they going to do to you? In the teaching lab on the 2nd level, Hannah was answering that exact question. Okay, so we've got everything we need for the foam cannon project we were supposed to build next week, she announced, surveying the equipment with satisfaction. Industrial CO2 canisters, fire suppression concentrate, the mixing chamber I designed, and about 20 meters of pressure hose. You want to build a foam cannon, Lexi said flatly, to use against armed intruders. Not just any foam, Hannah corrected. Remember the strawberry-scented surfactant we mixed up last month? Turns out it has an interesting reaction with most standard electronics, creates a thin conductive layer that shorts out circuits. Wait, we tested that on your tablet and it stopped working for 3 days, Priya remembered. Exactly. Now imagine what it would do to fancy armor systems. Tobias considered this. How long to build it? Give me 20 minutes and decks on physics calculations. You have 15 minutes, Tobias said. Micah, what's our intruder status? The youngest member of their group was hunched over a terminal, having already bypassed 3 security protocols to access the facility's full sensor network. They're splitting up. Main group is trying to access the upper levels, but I locked all the main stairwells. 6 of them are heading to the maintenance shafts, and 2 just stripped off their armor and entered the ventilation system. Wait, they're in the vents? Dex looked up from his calculations. That's our thing. They can't do our thing. Then let's make them regret it, Tobias said. Micah, can you control the environmental systems from here? A grin spread across Micah's face. Oh, you're thinking what I'm thinking. Probably not, because I try not to think in pure chaos, but whatever you're planning, do it. Micah's fingers danced across the keyboard. Gravity plating controls are usually locked, but Dr. Hollins gave me administrative access last month after I fixed the climate system. Technically, I'm not supposed to use it without supervision, but I feel like armed intruders constitute an emergency. What are you doing? Lexi asked, moving to look over his shoulder. Creating selective microgravity zones. Watch this. In the ventilation shaft, Kirmoth and Bexenol were making steady progress, following the heat signatures of the fleeing humans. The shaft was cramped, uncomfortable, and beneath the dignity of obsidian talons, but orders were orders. I have visual, Kirmoth whispered. 30 meters ahead. They're moving toward the... Gravity shut off. Not everywhere, just in that specific section of ventilation shaft. Kirmoth found herself floating helplessly, unable to gain purchase on the smooth metal walls. Bexenol grabbed for a support strut, but only succeeded in sending himself spinning. What is happening? Bexenol demanded, rotating slowly through 3 dimensions. The humans, Kirmoth managed, trying to orient herself. They control the facility's systems. They just weaponized gravity. How do we fight enemies who weaponize gravity? Very carefully, Kirmoth suggested. Just before the ventilation fan, 3 sections down, kicked to maximum speed, creating a wind tunnel that sent both warriors tumbling backward through the shaft like leaves in a hurricane. Back in the teaching lab, 5 children watched the security feed while Hannah assembled her foam cannon. That's mean, Priya said, though she was smiling. Funny, but mean. They broke into our home, Dex countered. They shot our cookies. I think a little microgravity is fair. Done, Hannah announced, hefting a contraption that looked like someone had crossed a fire extinguisher with a small cannon, and added approximately 6 safety violations. 1 foam delivery system, ready for testing. We're not actually going to test it on people, right? Priya asked nervously. They're armed intruders who think we're weapons, Tobias pointed out. I think a little foam is the least of their concerns. Besides, it's non-lethal. We're just making it harder for them to, capture us. Lexi had been studying the tactical display. The main group is still trying to access the upper levels. They're stacked up at the east stairwell door. Perfect choke point, Tobias mused. Hannah, how's the range on that thing? From the upper landing? Plenty. Why? Because I think those nice intruders need to learn an important lesson about breaking into a facility full of children who've spent the last 6 months studying advanced chemistry, physics, and engineering. And what lesson is that? Hannah asked. Tobias's grin was absolutely wicked. Never bring conventional weapons to a science fight. 10 minutes later, Commander Ulkesh was reconsidering every life choice that had led him to this moment. His team was stacked at the east stairwell, ready to breach. They had shaped charges, plasma cutters, and enough firepower to level a small building. One door should not be a problem, except the door opened on its own, just as they were about to breach it. And standing at the top of the stairs was a small human girl holding what appeared to be a homemade artillery piece made from laboratory equipment. "Hi!" Hannah called down cheerfully. "You guys might want to step back." "It's one small human with a—" Ulkesh began, then stopped as Hannah pulled the trigger. The foam cannon roared to life with a sound like a small explosion. A massive wave of pink, strawberry-scented foam erupted from the barrel, cascading down the stairwell like a delicious-smelling avalanche. It hit the first rank of obsidian talons with the force of a freight train, coating them instantly in a thick layer of aromatic bubbles. Ulkesh's armor began sparking immediately. His heads-up display flickered and died. His camouflage systems went haywire, making him flash through a rainbow of colors. Around him, his elite warriors were experiencing similar malfunctions, all while being buried under a foam that smelled aggressively of artificial strawberries. "Retreat!" he ordered, trying to wipe foam from his visor. "Fall back to—" His armor's servo motors locked up. The conductive foam had penetrated every seal, every joint, every circuit. Ulkesh, legendary commander of the Obsidian Talons, toppled over backward like a particularly well-armed statue, landing in a pile of foam with a sound that would haunt his nightmares for years. Around him, 15 warriors were in similar states of pink, sparkly, strawberry-scented incapacitation. From the top of the stairs, 6 children peered down at their handiwork. "Is it weird that I feel bad?" Priya asked. "Little bit," Dex admitted. "But also, look at them. They're like armored pink snowmen." "Strawberry snowmen," Hannah corrected proudly. "We should probably secure them before the foam dissolves," Tobias suggested. "Micah, can you lock down this section?" "Already done. Blast doors sealed, climate control isolated. They're not going anywhere." Lexi was studying her scanner. "We've still got 9 hostiles unaccounted for, and our backup won't be here for another 30 minutes. "Then we keep playing defense," Tobias said, "because apparently we're actually pretty good at this." In his foam prison, Ulkesh listened to the humans' retreat and wondered how he was going to explain this in his mission report, if he survived long enough to file one. Commander Briggs arrived at the Terra Nova 6 facility with 12 combat shuttles, 60 Marines in full assault gear, and a migraine that had started the moment he'd received the emergency beacon. Remote research outpost. Silent alarm. No communication. All signs pointed to either a catastrophic systems failure or a hostile incursion, and given the galaxy's current political climate, he was betting on the latter. What he found was somehow so much worse. "Sir, we've got multiple life forms inside," his second reported, scanning the facility. "Human signatures on the upper levels, unknown signatures throughout the building, and—" She paused, recalibrating her scanner. "Sir, I'm reading massive amounts of surfactant compounds in the East Wing, and microgravity fluctuations in the ventilation system, and what appears to be is that chemical smoke." "Status of the human signatures?" Briggs demanded. "Active. Moving. Elevated heart rates, but not critical. They appear to be—" "Sir, they're in the commissary." Briggs closed his eyes. "Please tell me the children weren't in the facility during the incursion." The silence that followed told him everything he needed to know. "Breaching in 30 seconds. Non-lethal protocols until we identify hostiles. If anyone has hurt those kids—" He didn't finish the threat. He didn't need to. The Marines hit the facility like a precision instrument, clearing rooms with practiced efficiency. What they found defied every tactical manual Briggs had ever read. East Wing. 15 armored figures, coated in pink foam. Their high-tech equipment completely non-functional, sealed behind blast doors. The foam smelled like strawberries. One of the armored figures was making a sound that might have been crying. Ventilation system. 2 more hostiles, stuck in a zero-gravity section of ductwork, spinning slowly and looking deeply traumatized. Maintenance level. 4 hostiles tied up with their own equipment harnesses, covered in what appeared to be. Briggs leaned closer. Chocolate sauce? No. Some kind of chemical compound that looked like chocolate sauce. They'd been positioned in front of a screen playing educational videos about Earth's history on loop. West Laboratory. 3 more hostiles webbed to the ceiling with emergency medical tape, surrounded by small hovering drones that sprayed them with water every time they struggled. Handwritten signs hung around their necks reading, "Intruder time out, please do not feed." And in the commissary, sitting around a table eating sandwiches and drinking juice boxes, were 6 children who looked up with bright, cheerful expressions when the Marines burst in. "Oh, good, you're here," Tobias said, waving with a sandwich. "We weren't sure how long the stink bombs in the South Corridor would last." Briggs lowered his weapon slowly. "Someone want to tell me what in the name of every god humanity has ever invented is going on here?" The explanation took 20 minutes. Briggs spent most of it trying to decide whether to laugh, cry, or requisition these children for military intelligence. Possibly all 3. "Let me make sure I understand this correctly," he said finally. "The Counterattack Empire's elite special forces unit broke into this facility to capture what they believed were human bioweapons, but they were actually here to capture you. 6 kids. At space camp." "Advanced educational retreat," Hannah corrected. "But yes. And you defeated them using foam cannons, gravity manipulation, maintenance robots, and chocolate-scented irritant compounds." "The chocolate smell was actually a mistake," Lexi admitted. "I was trying for vanilla, but I mixed up the bottles. Still worked, though." "Because you thought it was a training exercise?" "At first," Tobias confirmed. "Then we realized it wasn't, and we just kind of kept going. We know the facility really well, and we've done a lot of creative problem-solving workshops." Briggs pinched the bridge of his nose. "Where are the adult supervisors?" "Conference on Titan Station," Micah supplied. "Dr. Hollins and the others left yesterday. We were supposed to be in scheduled rest cycles for the monthly health monitoring. The automated systems handle that part." "So you were alone when this happened?" "Well, yeah," Dex said. "But we had the whole facility's resources, and each other. And honestly, once we got over being scared, it was kind of like the ultimate team project." "You took down an elite military unit as a team project." "When you say it like that, it sounds weird," Priya said softly. Briggs looked at these 6 children, at Tobias with jam on his collar, at Hannah gesturing enthusiastically about foam viscosity, at Dex bouncing in his chair, at Priya looking worried, at Micah still monitoring the security feeds, at Lexi calmly eating her sandwich, and felt something shift in his understanding of humanity's place in the galaxy. "Sir," a Marine ran in. "We've established communication with the hostiles. Their commander is requesting to speak with you. He seems distressed." In the East Wing, they'd cleared enough foam for Ulkesh to speak, though he couldn't move much more than his head. His armor was completely dead, pink bubbles still clinging to every surface. "I am Commander Ulkesh of the Counterattack Empire," he began with what little dignity he could muster. "And I wish to file a formal—" "Save it," Briggs interrupted. "I've seen what you tried to do here. You broke into a civilian facility. You attempted to abduct children. You fired weapons in a non-combat zone. The only reason you're not in a military prison right now is because I need to understand what possible insanity led you to think this was a good idea." Ulkesh's translator worked perfectly. He heard every word, and more importantly, he heard the word that mattered most. Children. Children, he repeated slowly. You're confirming they're actual children. Not weapons, not soldiers, not genetically engineered combat organisms. They're kids at an educational program, Briggs snapped. What made you think otherwise? Ulkesh explained. The intelligence reports, the files labeled Project Olympus, the descriptions of advanced capabilities, the strategic analysis, the engineering expertise, the physics mastery. All of it had pointed to bioweapons. When he finished, Briggs was staring at him with an expression somewhere between fury and disbelief. You read about gifted children at an advanced learning program, Briggs said slowly, and decided they were weapons. In our defense, Ulkesh managed, they defeated 24 of the Empire's finest warriors using improvised equipment and facility systems. Because you broke into their home and scared them. They didn't seem scared. They seemed enthusiastic. Briggs couldn't argue with that. He'd seen the security footage. The kids had approached the whole situation like it was the ultimate puzzle to solve. Here's what's going to happen, Briggs said. You're going to contact your superiors, you're going to explain this situation, and then we're going to have a very serious diplomatic conversation about the Comathian Empire's intelligence-gathering methods. 2 hours later, Briggs stood in the facility's command center, watching a holographic transmission from Comathian High Command. 5 ancient generals stared at the footage of their elite unit's defeat with expressions that transcended language barriers. "These are your warriors?" the lead general asked quietly. "The finest in the Empire," came the reply. "And these are the humans who defeated them." The footage switched to show 6 children building Hana's foam cannon, laughing and joking while they worked. The silence from High Command stretched for a full minute. "How old are they?" another general asked. "Between 9 and 12 rotations," Ulkesh's voice reported. "Standard human years." More silence. "And they accomplished this, believing it to be recreation. A team-building exercise, according to their statements." The lead general leaned back. When he spoke again, his voice was very careful. "Ambassador, please convey to the human leadership that the Comathian Empire would like to open immediate diplomatic negotiations. Full peace treaty, technology exchange, cultural cooperation, whatever they desire." Briggs blinked. "That seems like a strong reaction to a single incident." "Commander Briggs," the general said, "we sent our best warriors against what we believed were your most dangerous weapons. We were correct about the dangerous part. We were merely wrong about them being weapons." He gestured at the screen showing Tobias explaining his tactical decisions to a fascinated Marine. "These are your children, untrained, unaugmented, simply educated and creative. If this is what humanity produces in its youth programs, we have no desire to discover what your actual military can do." "So you're pursuing peace because 6 kids beat you?" "We're pursuing peace because 6 kids beat us and don't even understand how terrifying that is. Your species arms its children with curiosity and calls it education. You give them knowledge and expect them to solve problems. And when threatened, they don't fight. They innovate." The general's expression was unreadable. "We've conquered 200 worlds, Commander. We know danger when we see it. And your children, working together with nothing but classroom supplies, are the most dangerous thing we've encountered in 50 years. 3 months later, Tobias sat in class, listening to Dr. Hollins explain the new curriculum. Thanks to recent events, the doctor said with a pointed look at the six of them, we've been asked to consult on peaceful conflict resolution strategies. Apparently, what you did has impressed some very important people. We just didn't want to get captured, Hannah whispered. And you succeeded spectacularly, Dr. Hollins replied. So much so that the Comathian Empire has requested human advisors for their educational system. They want to learn how we teach creative problem-solving. Dex raised his hand. Does this mean we're famous? This means your children, who had a very unusual experience and are now going back to normal studies. The galaxy doesn't need to know that humanity's greatest diplomatic victory was achieved by 6 kids with foam cannons and creative thinking. But the galaxy did know. Word spread through back channels and diplomatic pouches. Other species heard the story and reconsidered their positions on humanity. The tale grew with each telling. The sleeping cubs who woke and turned predators into playmates. And in military academies across human space, a new lesson appeared in the curriculum. Never underestimate what people can accomplish when you give them knowledge, trust them to think, and teach them that every problem has a solution if you're creative enough to find it, especially if those people are 12 years old and armed with science equipment.